What's earwax? Why do I have it and how do I best get rid of it? In this video, I'm going to explain one of the most frequently asked questions that I hear in my practice. We're going to deep dive into the ear and explore some details. Welcome to Earman Dan. If you're new here, my name is Daniel and a very warm welcome. I'm a hearing care professional and the owner of Ear Studio in Castle Hill in Sydney. But more importantly, I spend my days helping people, not just to hear better, but actually to understand better and leave behind the challenges of hearing loss. And in this channel, I break down how hearing really works, how the hearing care landscape looks in Australia, and what you can do to get the best possible outcome. Now, I invite you to follow along in this journey. So, wax at the start is a combination of substances that are produced in the ear. These substances are oily in nature, and then they mix with shed skin cells, like dead skin cells, and form the earwax. So, against popular belief, wax is not something that enters the ear, but it's rather something that is produced in the ear. So, I'll need my ear again. Here we see the outer ear, the concha bowl, and then the ear canal, just significantly bigger than normal. In average, the ear canal only has a diameter of around 6 to 7 millimeters and is around 25 to 30 millimeters long. It's divided in two segments, which you can see here. On the outside, it's roughly 1/3 to half long, is the cartilaginous part. And then we've got the deeper part, which is actually made out of skull bone. Now, the outer part, the cartilaginous part, it's quite insensitive and robust. You can kind of prod it and poke it, and while you can kind of feel it, it's definitely not painful. In that part of the ear canal, there are several glands here, and these glands produce these oily substances. Essentially, these glands are nothing else but modified sweat glands, and these sweat glands then produce the earwax. So, what's its purpose? The earwax has a variety of functions. In the first instance, it's lubricating the skin of the outer ear canal. It's prevent itchiness, dry skin, cracked skin, and it also collects all sorts of things that may enter the ear canal, such as dirt, debris, dust, or even insects that may go into the ear. So the earwax here acts like a barrier so that things that are not meant to go in the ear staying outside, and that they don't cause damage to the middle ear function that is deeper down. And a third function of earwax is actually the prevention of ear infections, as the wax contains some antimicrobial properties. And finally, I have to say, the wax aids the self-cleaning mechanism of the ear. All things that may get into the ear and shouldn't be there, they need to come out again, right? And that gets us to the next point, is how does it come out? The ear actually has a very cool built-in self-cleaning mechanism. The skin in the ear canal here that lines the ear canal actually migrates outwards, so from the inside to the outside at a very, very slow pace. And with that, there's a layer of wax in this outer part, and that gets transported out of the ear. So the skin in the ear canal actually migrates outwards at a very slow pace. And with that, there's a layer of wax covering the ear canal on this outer part here, and that transports everything back out the way it came in. So when you have a shower, just tiny particles of earwax and debris come out automatically, and you don't even notice it. Imagine like your carpet in the house would do that, and it just always grows outwards the way it came in, and so self-cleans the house. All the dirt that comes in automatically comes out again. And that is exactly how the ear works. And that, I find, is pretty incredible. Sometimes, though, that system of self-cleaning doesn't work. So why does it get stuck at times? There can be many, many reasons. As I mentioned previously, the skin here in the ear canal migrates outward very, very slowly. So if the glands that are producing the earwax are somehow hyperactive and they produce too much, it can build up in one spot and cause a blockage. Another reason could be that the canal is too narrow and it sticks to each other, or it has a kink or a bump in it that makes it difficult for the wax to come out. Now also, some people that use hearing aids frequently, for example, or they stick things in their ears such as headphones, earphones, cotton buds. It can happen that these items that you push into your ear are pushing the wax back deeper. So the wax tries to come out, but these devices are just pushing it back in again. And for some people, it's just that skin migration system that for some reason just doesn't work. But whatever the reason, there may be a wax buildup in the ear canal, and that has to come out. It needs to be addressed. If wax builds up in the ear for too long, it can lead to a full blockage, causing temporary hearing loss, or in worse cases, when you have a shower or you go swimming in a pool, it can trap water behind the wax and can increase the risk of an infection in the outer ear canal. Here, we also call that otitis externa, or colloquially swimmer's ear. Now, a quick fun fact. There's also a genetic component to that plays a role. It is the ABCC11 gene that controls two things of our body functions. It controls the type of wax that it's produced. Is it sticky or is it dry and flaky? And it's also correlated to the body odor one may have. For example, people from Southern Asia, such as India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, or even Bangladesh, they have a much higher rate of issues due to earwax buildup than other groups, for example, from the East Asian population, who largely have the gene that causes dry wax that comes out much easier. Also, people from the Middle East and from the Mediterranean countries, they often show higher rates of earwax-related issues because they have the gene, or more predominantly have the gene that makes the earwax sticky like honey. So when it comes to earwax genetics, you definitely want to be East Asian, as they have the lowest rate of issues. It should be said again, for most people the ear is self-cleaning and it does not require any intervention. A simple wipe of the ear with a towel or a tissue after having a shower is sufficient. But if you know that you have earwax blockages every now and again, kind of regularly, you should also get the earwax removed regularly and proactively, rather than waiting for the blockage to occur and cause you issues. It's much easier to remove small, non-occluding parts of wax, and it will ensure that the ear doesn't block up all of a sudden when you are in a very inopportune moment, like at a wedding or something like that. So, how can you do it? There are technically two categories of wax removal: removal by irrigation with water, and manual dry removal by microsuction or curetting. Irrigation by water, in Australia at least, is by far the most common solution, but it's clearly not the best solution. Actually, irrigation or use of water with syringing causes quite significant risks. Water by itself is not the issue. It is water under pressure that is the issue. If irrigation is done by a syringe, that could be like a plastic syringe, or worse, these big metal syringes, these syringes can create much higher pressure than the eardrum can take, and much higher pressure than a specialized device that is developed for ear irrigation. If the pressure with the syringe is too high, or the exit path at the ear canal where the water normally comes out is blocked by the forward motion of the syringe, it can build up so much pressure that the eardrum bursts. Now, while it can be done safely, my clear recommendation is never to use a syringe to clear the ear. If water is required, it should be done with a specialized device that is developed especially for that purpose of ear irrigation. These devices have a flow rate controller and a pressure controller, so they cannot build up so much pressure that it's getting dangerous to the eardrum. In most cases, though, these devices are rarely found in GP practices. Mostly you can find them in clinics that specialize in earwax removals. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm definitely not against GPs at all. Obviously, they play a huge part in healthcare and a very vital role even in ear care. But when it comes to something so specialized as wax removal, which GPs, I don't know, they may do it every now and again, maybe once or twice a week. If it comes to wax removal, I recommend going to a person who does these procedures very routinely and also have invested in specialized equipment that makes earwax removal more efficient and safer. There's actually been an article in a medical journal to GPs by the RACGP That's the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. That was back in 2015, and it highlights the risk of irrigation with water and how it should be done safely, but also what alternatives there are. I'll pop a link in the description below if you're interested. Just have a look and check it out. This article even mentions that dry removal is favorable. And I'll quote here from that article. It has, quote, fewer contraindications and is associated with a lower frequency of infections, end quote. However, it also contains some by now outdated information. Remember, the article is now 10 years old. In that article, they say, and I quote again, unfortunately, this is only available, talking about dry removal, in dedicated ENT outpatient clinics. Now, that is no longer correct. Meanwhile, there are many hearing clinics with very qualified staff and specialized equipment who offer the service of wax removal, and that would be my recommendation. Actually, when we started offering wax removal in our clinic in 2019, that statement was still largely true. Only very few clinics outside of ENT practices offered wax removal. But today you can find clinics everywhere in Australia that do that. Another quick fun fact, since 2019, at Ear Studio in our clinic alone, we have successfully completed over 11,000 wax removals. And I know other clinicians and other clinics locally here in the region and all across Australia that also offer this service as one of their core services in their practice. Now, dry removal is very well tolerated and is safely done under direct vision, like a microscope or specialized magnification loupes. The one we use, I've got them here actually, they are an Australian design and still Australian made. Down in Victoria, made by an optical engineer who often worked with ENT specialists and audiologists to produce these devices that can illuminate the ear canal but also magnify at a perfect rate and a perfect focal length for working in the ear. So this is a great device, and under this device, while you are looking into the ear, you can use curettes, which are tiny little spoons that I have here, spoons or hooks that you can use in the ear canal to pull out wax, or you can even use micro forceps that can be used to pull parts of the wax or even dead skin particles out of the ear. Now, all this equipment in our clinic, we use a surgical grade, hospital grade sterilizing device, an autoclave, to always sterilize these devices to the highest possible grade. Another option also for the removal is suction, where we've got a tube that is attached to a suction device, and then we can use that suction to suck onto the wax and move it out. That avoids scraping of the ear canal, also an extremely safe procedure. Now, a couple of warnings. Please do not attempt self-removal in any way, with no instrument whatsoever. Do not stick anything in your ear. That includes cotton buds, scoops, spoons. Even if you have professional equipment, do not use it. You just cannot see what's going on in the ear, and it's very easy to do terrible damage. Unfortunately, we see the aftermath of people trying to clear wax themselves from their ears in our clinic regularly, and it's not pretty to see. Now, there are also these new equipments available on eBay and Amazon that have a little camera and a hook. I strongly advise against them. It's not a natural motion for a person to do that. It's often a mirrored image, and you can actually do quite significant damage. Now, quickly to eardrops before we conclude the video. I'll actually make another video very soon, maybe even today, where I talk about eardrops. It would make this video way too long, so I'll save that for another one, but I'll promise I'll do that soon. The short truth about eardrops is they do not remove earwax. They only soften it into a sludge. Now, with everything being said, I think it's a fair conclusion to say that if you have a suspected wax blockage in your ears, go and find a clinic close to you that offers wax removal as one of their core services. You can find that sometimes in GP practices, but quite often in audiology and hearing clinics where they can do that, and they do that quite regularly. I would suggest find a clinic who's done it many thousands of times If they find anything in your ear that may need some further medical attention, in most cases they've got very good contacts with GPs and ENT clinics around the place, so they are very likely to get you an appointment soon should that be necessary. So stay safe, stay unblocked. I wish you all the very best, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.